like that. It has a nice ring to it.
Boss name.
All right. Let's kick this one off. We got another episode coming. So 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the ASOM Pod, where we talk a lot. E-com is the path that we walk a lot. From 4 point of views when we're talking shop.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the ASOM Pod. I had to think about that for a second. I don't know why.
If you forget, right?
Shit, there's the logo. We're here back. We're here for episode number 5. Is that right?
Yeah, it's episode 5.
Yes.
We're in Dallas, Texas this time.
Yeah, we're in Dallas, Texas.
Sub Summit.
Yeah, we're here shooting live at Sub Summit. But before we get started here, I'm going to introduce everybody, including myself here today.
But you start with yourself. So
No,
we
I don't want to start with
Yeah,
myself.
yes.
That's rude.
We save the best for last.
Okay, so are you last or am I last?
I was going to say Bryan.
Brian
this
last.
time.
All right.
That's right.
Anyways,
I'm not even in the discussion.
well, John's a celebrity down here, so let's start off with John, and everyone kiss their mic, get closer to your mic here. So we've got John here, Android lover, leading subscription box, BattlBox, hit show, Southern Survival. We've got John Roman. We've got Amer here, Amer, the Prince of Bosnia. That's his new name. He's the branding and experience king. He builds website experiences for people like Billie Eilish, LeBron James, Paris Hilton, and all sorts of famous people. And we got Bryan here. He's the director, as you can see on his shirt, director of e-commerce for Almost Pride. He's the meat guy. He's not Jimmy Kim. He is the funny guy on Instagram and the marketing extraordinaire. And my name is Jimmy Kim. I'm an email marketer, CIO, and founder of a little company called Sendlane, a email and SMS marketing automation platform. So there you go, guys. I've introduced myself. I know it's been a couple pods since I've introduced myself, but I am the moderator, and I'm here and excited to talk about scaling today, guys.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it, dude. Let's jump into this.
First thing I want to talk about is scaling branding on T-shirts, because
So this was before I joined. What they did was they let the old aunt design the first T-shirt, and they said, "Hey, what's the biggest logo we could put in a T-shirt?"
Well, here's the only reason I bring it up. How is that logo bigger than the ASOM logo on the screen?
I like it though. It's got like a nostalgic vibe.
That's what I'm saying,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Brings you back to the 90s.
Yeah.
I'm not against it.
Even the font.
Even the font, the arm.
Nice little logo, Amir.
Cool.
It definitely feels like
Put another one on your
family-owned
sleeve.
business.
Yeah.
It definitely screams that. Well, let's dive right into that. Let's talk about scale. So today's episode is really focused around scale and talking about the hurdles and challenges that we all have in different phases. Just to set the stage, I think what's really interesting is all of us in this room have hit some level of scale at this point in our businesses or our previous businesses, where we've been able to kind of go through that evolution and change from that early stage, scrappy startup stage where you start to scale. You've got people, you've got managers, you've got directors. And I think it's one of those interesting things because I don't think a lot of business owners actually hit what they call scale in the world. And I, for one, probably in this third business for me now, has finally hit a business that's hit scale. The other two businesses were more lifestyle businesses. They were definitely not scale. And there's a lot of things that change behind us, right? You guys are scaling e-commerce as a new channel, for example. You guys have been around for 40, 50 years, you said, right?
Yep.
And then, you've been, obviously, you've had your first agency, you scaled that one. Now you're at 100 and some people now. It's continuing to scale and, grow. And that means a lot of different things over time. And then, of course, John obviously has scaled his brand quite significantly too. So let's start off with scale and talk about it. And I think what is interesting is this. Look, when you think about scale in your business and what you're doing today, let's talk about that. Let's talk about what that means to you and what that means to your business and how you guys are starting to see that change the business ultimately. Because all of us, I think, have a different expectation. Let's take that thing we were at early stage and then we started to scale. What did that mean? What did that change? And what are the things that you're thinking perspective-wise? Good, bad, all that good stuff. So I'm going to start with you, Amer, today first. And we're going to talk about you because you are in the services business. You are a agency. I know you're a full service agency, primarily in web development. You do other stuff, I know, but that's your bread and butter. What did it mean to go from the day that Amer was building your website to now you've got, 100 and some people globally working and building websites across the world? So talk about it.
I think for me, ultimately scale is when we talk about scale in the ecosystem, it's revenue. And that's kind of the biggest pinpoint. But I think scale has evolutions. So, for example, like when you go from a solopreneur to hiring your first people, that is scale. That is, offloading your responsibilities on other people, or offloading something you're good at to somebody that's great at something. But I also think, like for us, at one point it was, how do we scale to be better partners? How do we scale to have Praella recognized as an industry leader in web development?
It's an interchangeable word.
Yeah. So, and I think there's phases for every single company at certain parts. But I think sometimes when we, in the startup world, especially talk about scale, it's more about, are we scaling revenue? But on the other hand, I also sometimes see people scale people too quickly. And we've been part of this too. Just because you have a lot of people doesn't mean you're scaling. So there's a lot of companies that also hire, hoping it is going to lead to growth. But all it is burning cash.
Yeah, I think you see it less on the merchant side. I think more on the service and SaaS side, you see a lot of that scale. And then, I mean, you'd have to be living under a rock not to see the news where 10% of team laid off. I spoke to someone last week that's in our space that they did another round of layoffs. So it's I think it happens in y'all's space, but not so. I mean, it happens in ours, but not as much.
Not as much.
Yeah. But when we talk about direct to consumer, we're talking also about, easy there, buddy.
Whoa.
What was that? I liked it.
But I think it's also talking about a lot of brands going from scaling, given their advertising budget, from $5,000 per month to maybe $5,000 a day.
So when we say scale, like that's the first thing I think of, because it's the most I use the word, and it's purely we're talking about direct to consumer campaigns, whether it's on Meta or ByteDance or Google. That's, hey, can we scale this, right? So we'll start off testing an ad and we'll be spending $1,000. Why are you laughing?
I'm gonna adjust your mic just a little bit. Like
No, I'm laughing because we have a camera here, but I want to look at the camera, but at the same time, I want to look at you.
I want you to look me in the eyes.
Oh,
All right.
There's some deep-rooted passion there.
Welcome to Dallas. Welcome to Dallas.
But so that's how we use scale, right? So we'll be okay. We'll start off testing this, and it's $1,000 a day, and we hope that we can get the good CAC to get it to 2 or 3 or 5 or 10. So we use the word the most in that sense, but I think that's a very simplistic use of it.
Yeah.
Do you think that, and as you start talking about that, like scale to you means like advertising more and different things, where to us it means people and revenue and size? I mean, they mean the same thing at some level or another. But do you think that for, and this is a perfect kind of perspective thing, when you're on the services side or software side, ultimately, for us, humans are how we scale, because in order to get more revenue, you need more humans in order to do that. You guys need more advertising. So essentially it's the same thing. It's just that when we want to unscale, we have to let go of humans, where for you guys, you're just pulling back on budgets, right?
Yeah, I think more times than not, it is that. But, so I think like BattlBox is currently trying to build to. And, we want to have that omni-channel. We want to get into retail. So once we get into retail and we test it and we find what works, and we want to scale that channel, which would mean being in multiple retailers, right? I think at that point it's both, right? We're also scaling. We have to scale humans too at that point, and we have to scale all kinds of stuff. So I think it's both. I think on the direct to consumer side, it is more simplistic until you get to that next level.
Sure.
I mean, for you too, was it also like at one point scaling warehouses? Like, hey, we need a lot more space. We need a lot.
Yeah,
better technology.
absolutely. So, I mean, initially our warehouse was super tiny, and then we bought a facility, and then we had to scale that. We had to build on top of it, and then we had to scale, and we had to get a secondary warehouse. So, absolutely, I think to the point earlier, scale's interchangeable, and it means so many different things.
Yeah, I mean, when I think about scale and SaaS, I think very differently than you guys in my way. I think about the business, the processes, and the repeatability that occurs.
Sure.
Where I'm in this business, as you guys, some listeners may or may not know, but I hired a CEO that started in January this year. Yeah. And the reason why I brought him in was because I didn't want to be part of the scale part of the business. And what I mean by that is not that I didn't want to be a part of the business. I just really didn't want to be part of the operational and the challenges that you come with processes and standing people up and putting layers behind things and creating creating more systems and operate. This is where like operational, what do they call them? Like operational, what do they call them? Systems, I guess.
Yeah.
Operational systems come into place, and you know, this change, this tracking, this changes, and like the business effectively changes because it's no longer early employees, or you know, even not that early, but earlier employees that are generalists that are doing a lot of things, and all of a sudden everyone starts getting specialized. There's more checklists, there's more processes and procedures. Like a lot of the things that I've learned over even the last 6 months here, I've now understood more and more why airlines are the way they are, or why, you know, these large companies are operating at the way that they operate. You know, you get frustrated when you go somewhere and you're like, did you do this? Did you turn on your computer? Did you do this? You know, like they ask you all these questions that we perceive as dumb. But the reality is someone made that checklist because that's how they built their scale, right? Their process. So that's where I look at in SaaS. And I think it's really starkly different. And this is where I get really interesting is like when I see brands and you see biggest brands in the world doing, a couple $1 billion or whatever it is, brands are different when it comes to what it looks like for them on scale. Their scale is, again, to your points, like spending more on marketing, getting more in the public eye, going more mass media centric, and not staying so niched and siloed within their things. But I want to flip it over to Bryan, because Bryan, to me, what's interesting about you guys is that you guys were this offline local, I don't know what local town or whatever you want to go, local city, town, whatever, like brand that's been around for 20, 30, 40 years. And then they decided to really get into e-commerce, but not just get into e-commerce. They brought Bryan in and they wanted to scale e-commerce, right? That's why you were there. So tell me what it was like going from like this environment where, you have people that are used to a certain thing and now you want to scale, which means add more revenue to your business.
Yeah, it was interesting because when I came in, the e-commerce team was just a few people, and it was more so, like we've talked about in previous episodes, a business that was like, we have a great product, we just need to sell it online. But it wasn't managed. There was no growth, real true growth.
Were they selling online?
They were
already?
selling online, right? So they started e-com in 2014. But it was very basic. They sold treats for a few years and they started to add raw. Now we just added subscriptions last year. But when I went into it completely blindsided in regards to, I thought, right, I just needed to scale the business in regards to setting up the operations like Jimmy's talking about with emails, flows, offers, ads, etc. But we are an A to Z business from procurement all the way through distribution. So now, right, the very first month I was there, we were 35% over previous month. So what does that mean? Now procurement's mad at me because now they have to procure more product. Now they have to hire more people in our USDA kitchen facility to handle the overflow, the orders. And now it trickles all the way down to packaging and manufacturing, and the warehouse needed more staff for fulfillment because they were used to fulfilling X. Now we're fulfilling XX. So month by month, I started growing it. Now we're like 30%, literally month over month since I started. So we're getting big now to the point where, okay, well, we need a new freezer. Right, we need a new lamb farm because now the farm that we were buying lamb from can't buy it at scale. Like we can't buy it at scale how we need to. So my part of the job, I hate saying it's easy, but it's easier when I'm just like staying in the e-commerce lane. But when I have to start thinking about how it affects the entire company, it makes scaling very challenging because we're not just a company that buys product and upsells it, puts their label on it and calls it a day. We handle everything. So when I sell more, now
everything has to scale.
It affects the entire company. That's not necessarily true for a lot of brands because they don't need freezer space. They don't need different farms to order their product from. They just literally just hit a button, right? So that's been challenging for me in regards to like encapsulating the entire company and making them a part of my plan. So now it's like, hey, here's what I'm thinking numbers are going to be like next 90, and then after that 90, next 90. So that way they can sort of like prepare for that. But just the e-commerce presence, actually having like a focus and a team behind it, is the company's like, this is wild. Like we should have been doing this for a long time, right? And it's really, really cool to be a part of, but it is challenging. And I tell people all the time, it's like scaling's like being a parent. Like you have a kid, it's like pretty easy to like manage a kid and like run your family with one child in the house. Then you have 2 kids and it's like, all right, well now operationally we need to change, scheduling needs to change, we need more care. 3 kids, now it gets even harder. So I kind of relate scaling to having kids in your family. The more kids you have, the more you want to scale your family, the harder it becomes to manage and operate,
Yeah.
So question for you guys. And this can be, maybe Jimmy, we'll start with you. It doesn't have to even be a successful scale, but what was the first time you experienced scaling pains?
Dude, I'll go zap back to 2019 because I think this is a perfect example of scale failure and something I did. So in 2019 or 2018, I raised my seed fund, right? And my seed fund was obviously to accelerate and build and all this stuff. But somewhere along the line, and because I didn't know, somewhere along the line, someone told me, oh, well, you need to go grow your sales team, your go-to-market motion, do all this stuff. So in my mind, what does that mean? Go hire a bunch of people, right? And I think my first lesson of scale has been that it's easy as an entrepreneur, at least for me, to go out and invest in people thinking that something might happen because I live in a bubble of optimism as a human. And we failed miserably. And what I mean by that is I brought in 4 or 5 people. I was like, guys, we got this hot product we're developing. Oh, we can sell it. You hear about all these startup stories that are going out and getting these early beta people to come by and invest, and they'll buy this product and do all this stuff. So I stuck them in a room. I remember I stuck them in a room kind of like where we're in now. It's like a glass room like this. And they had a guy I called the manager because I just chose one that seemed like he was smarter than the rest of them. And I was like, you're the manager, and now you're 4, like, go figure this out, sell. Here's the list of all the people in the world. And it was like a stupid list. It was like millions of people. And I was like, here's all the people in the world that could buy our tool. Like, go sell them. And then like, it was just a disaster, basically. And what I mean by that, it was they had no systems, they had no processes, they had nobody who understood what to sell. And so they ultimately just kind of did whatever the hell they wanted to. And yeah, they made a couple sales because natural salespeople can sell stuff, even if they don't understand it. But ultimately, I had to get rid of the entire team. I had to scrap the sales team. And we were walking here because Amer, who's my VP of partnerships, was here. And we were talking about this on the walk here. I was like, yeah, that was my first sales guy. He wasn't my first sales guy, but he was my first sales guy that we successfully started to see some level of repeatability happen.
Was he part of that first group? Or
No,
okay.
No, he came in at the tail end of that, and he was separate to that. And we just kind of decided and made a decision to kind of lay off everybody. It sucked, but that was my first learning of a failed scale up experience. And I touched that fire a couple times through my career now. It's probably my biggest downfall is I get really excited. We make a couple sales or do something, and I'm like, yes, let's go fucking hire 25 people. But this is what every tech CEO founder does. I mean, it's what we do because we are in the mindset of growth, right? We need to grow. We need to create market share. We need to create market presence. And it becomes one of those things that come into place. So to me, that was probably, I can repeat that story in different variations multiple times in my career where unfortunately I've had to bring some really smart people in and then lay them off because I made a stupid mistake because we weren't ready to scale because the processes, system, and repeatability weren't there.
Wow.
And
when was this timeline wise?
That was 2019. So 5 years
2019.
ago now. So
Okay.
5 years ago when I first started early stage and I thought I was a hot shot and smart because I just came off 2 great successes in business. I thought, oh, dude, SaaS easy, man. Whatever. I can go do this. And I thought I could go scale. I could build funnels. I can do direct response. And it was working at some level, but it was inefficient. It made no sense. My sales guys are closing $25 a month deals. Like, that's stupid. And I'm like, well, your commission check is $2.80, my friend. And it's like, it made no sense, right? And and then the second time around was the same thing. And I think I have a pattern, and I'm a guy who likes to see his own patterns. The second time I did it was when I raised my Series A, right? So in 2021, I raised my Series A again. We had figured out what our version of scale, what that time was. We started repeating, we started growing. We were growing really fast. So I was able to go raise the Series A. And then I raised the Series A. What did I do again? Oh, we're ready. We need to fucking pump the fire. We need to press the gas pedal. So I went on and hired, and I ended up hiring this thing called a partnership team. And this was my failure to scale there at that time. I hired him and I was like, go get partners. And then nothing happened. And then I was like, why can't you get partners? And they're like, we don't know what to do. And I was like, but I hired a VP. And he's like, yeah, I don't know what to do either. You know what I mean? That basically is what happened ultimately. And they had all these ideas from previous experiences and jobs they've done, but they've never built the system. And the learning that I take away from those failures is I have to be, or someone has to be truly responsible for laying out the groundwork and foundation before you can go out and even try to attempt this thing.
Do you know what I think we sometimes do as leaders, and John, and you and I spoke about this before, is when we try to build teams or we hire people, we sometimes assume that everyone should know everything that we know. and we don't give them a foundation to work off of. And then it's like they're very smart people, but if things are not documented that you want them to do, they don't have the tools. Like it's almost like asking the best builder to build your best house and not giving him bricks.
Yeah.
Like you got to give him bricks.
Well, every dream of a employee, when you're an entrepreneur, founder, CEO, whatever you are, like the dream is that you hire somebody, right? If I hire Bryan obviously knows marketing. He'll be able to just take it and go. He'll learn everything and do it himself. But you're right. Like you've got to be prescriptive at some level and guide and be a good leader. Being a good leader means that you're also guiding, mentoring, and teaching the person behind you that you're giving that responsibility and task off to. And that is actually a really good segue into the next question that I was thinking about with scale. I think this is really interesting. When I think about scale in my business, I think about a leader first scale. You go find a leader to go build the team, to go do things. But in retail, direct to consumer, I feel like it's the other way around often. I feel like you guys are hiring more ICs and finding people or agencies, but not going out and finding the leaders to go help your business scale. I mean, am I right, wrong about that? And I'd love to hear about it in the agency level thought process.
Yeah, I don't know. I want to hear what John thinks about this. I don't know if I have enough experience in order to answer that.
Yeah. So can you clarify a little bit?
So when you go and say, I'm going to go scale something, right? And usually you need people in charge of these things. Do you look at your internal team? Do you go hire more ICs to do it? Or do you go hire leaders to go march and charge towards it?
So
you know what I mean?
I think normally process wise, step one is I look at the internal team.
Okay.
And I see, can the internal team do it? Is there a leader there? Maybe they're not in a leader position already. And if not, then I look at the leaders and can they build it on their team?
So now before you start attacking it though, do you just let your internal team or the people you have attack it? Or do you guys go and find someone first to come in and bring in and like take lead first?
So probably in hindsight, we should do the latter, but we don't.
Is it because of money usually?
Yeah, I think I think it's that, right? We're at the end of the day, we're very conservative sometimes with those types of decisions. And we also are, I'm big time against like hiring someone where there's that inherent risk of it not working out and having to terminate a person. I don't think that's a good thing necessarily. I think that's probably a fault with certainty, but it's a combination, right? Like I don't want to hire someone and have to fire them. And if we can do it internally, I want to.
I think too, I don't know if you've shared this on the first four. I'm gonna have to remember the first 4 episodes, but how you guys scaled content and you actually found your talent through your customers, and then essentially pipelined to scale content. Because scaling content also relating to D2C, you guys found out a way to scale content probably better than most people in your space.
Yeah. So
how did that work out?
Sure. So part of our initial go-to market strategy when we launched, we found 25 YouTubers that we wanted to send a box to, have them do a review. We had correspondence with them. We said, hey, we're sending you this. They semi-agreed. And we had this list in a Google sheet, and we sent them off. So we start seeing this. We had a pre-purchase survey at the time. It was 2015. That was kind of acceptable.
Yeah.
And it was, where did you hear about us, with the usual suspects. There was another where you could write something in. And we saw like 20% of the new customers writing Curran 1776. We're like, who is Curran 1776? we Google, we find him on YouTube. We're like, oh, he's one of the guys we're sending a box to. So we go to the spreadsheet. He's not on there. Do some further research. He's a paying customer. And we're like, okay, this is interesting. So we reach out to him right away. We're like, hey, we love what you're doing. You don't have to pay for your box anymore. $150 a month. Don't worry about it. We're going to send it to you. And then he continued to do the videos. We continued to see new customer acquisition from his channel. At the same time, we got permission. We're now posting his videos too. And we're seeing some, at the time, little momentum, 500,000 new subs. We're starting to see this grow. So the relationship just continued to grow. So we reached out to him again. We're like, hey, we're going to give you $500 a month. Keep doing the box reviews. We'll send you the box for free. There's some rules now. We need you to post it on this day. If you have any problems with any of the items, like let us know. Let's talk through it and explain it first. Let's educate.
Yep.
And we did that for a few months. And then it was like, hey, this is scalable. Like as we're spending more and getting it out there, we're seeing his channel grow, our channel grow, and the subscriber base grow. and they're all saying they've watched his videos.
That's awesome.
So it's hey, we know you've been in the HVAC industry for the past 20 plus years, and that's your career, and you do this at night for fun, and you live in a different state, but you want to, your wife and 3 kids move down to Georgia, do this full time. And he said yes. I mean, he talked to his family first. They moved down to Georgia. The next step is at that point, we can put out more content, right? Because he can focus fully on that. But he's still farm to table at this point, right? He's camera guy. He's in front of the camera. He's editor. He's posting on social. So as soon as we saw momentum with that, we then started building the team around him, right? We got him 1 video editor, then 2 video editors, then 3 video editors. And he's no longer posting. He takes the raw film, sends it to them. They chop it up, then goes to the social team that we then hired in place to make the posting. So it was 100% scale.
Yeah.
So do you think that's the biggest mistake brands make? Because when I look at all these brands today, and this goes to how I look at talent when we hire them, and I'll get to that in a second, but I feel all these brands chase these micro-influencers today to push their brand, where it is just, I feel a little bit not as raw and as exciting as Curran. Like, I'm not a big prepper or anything like that. I enjoy Curran's video because I can tell the guy loves it.
Yeah.
But he was a micro influencer.
Yeah.
But what you guys found, he was a micro influencer, but he wasn't being paid for it at first, right?
No, but most micro influencers aren't.
Yeah. But what I'm saying though, a lot of times when people send merchandise, it's like, hey, review my product, do this, do that. Like, I feel what you guys did is something different, is you found somebody that loved your product and said, how do we give him a megaphone?
Yeah, but I think that's the plan when you're targeting micro influencers. I think that's the strategy. It's right. You want to see someone. I think it's the needle in the haystack of finding that person, right?
What fish can become a whale.
Right. But if you're sending out product to a bunch of micro influencers and all of a sudden you see the needle being moved with one person, you're going to lean in on that person. You're going to see, how do we grow this partnership stronger?
But do people and brands take the leap that you typically made and bring them on full time?
I think no, but I think that if you can grow the relationship to that point, it's absolutely something you're going to think of. I think it's growing and fostering that relationship correctly.
Okay.
And I think some of it's timing, right?
Of course, yeah. I've talked to a lot of brands, and this is, maybe people didn't share with me, but it's the first time I really hear a story like this laid out about somebody who loved the product, micro-influencer, whatever you want to call it, becoming a bigger part of an organization. And you've done it a number of times.
Yeah. Didn't the Rich Wallet guys do that?
Well, they brought in an influencer that was already a large influencer. That's a kind of different. That's no different than like the Hexclad guys or any of the guys doing Gordon Ramsay and stuff. I mean, you're taking a large influencer
and you're just bringing them on.
That's much easier. To your point of like, and it's interesting because I was listening to your story, and then you had said earlier, I don't like to take the risk, but you took a big risk.
Yeah, that was a big risk.
Yeah, compared to going after set influence. I don't know. Maybe, and I know this guy doesn't live. What was the guy from Australia that used to chase wild animals and shit?
Steve Irwin.
What is it?
Steve Irwin.
Steve Irwin. I know.
Stingray
Rest
got
in
him.
peace. I know he's passed, but like that would be like your proven guy that like if he's carrying on BattlBox, right? Like everyone would be like, oh shit! Like if that guy's out there fucking chasing crocodiles and wrangling, strangling gorillas or whatever the hell he did out in the world, right? Like that would be a safe bet.
It's a safe bet, yeah.
And you took the most unsafe bet by just taking some guy who wasn't a content creator, who just did it on his own time, but you saw enough passion to make that investment.
Yeah, because like those guys that you talked about, I feel that's no different than Nike signing LeBron James.
No,
it's a safe bet. We know what the end result is going to be.
But you did see the needle move, right? So I'm thinking this more as like a brand puts in $5,000 a month in meta ads, right? And this particular ad set was working. Let's just put more money into that ad set. Right. You saw him being that ad set that was working in meta, and you're like, okay, how do we scale that ad set? The only way to scale it was to bring him in house, essentially, and have him produce more content.
But I think Jimmy's right. It was a risk. So I remember, and this is obviously 8 years ago, but I remember having the internal conversations like we're moving this guy down and his family. Like if this doesn't work out, like let's make like a commitment to each other that like we'll figure out a path for him for something, like whether it's BattlBox, where like I'm not going to be able to sleep well at night if we bring this guy down and it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
We've moved him to Middle Georgia.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, so it was not something we took lightly.
Yeah.
But that wasn't even, just to your point, a risk of the company. I mean, Brandon trusted you guys with his livelihood completely.
Yeah, but it's one of those things too. Like you think about the things you do that you enjoy,
Yeah.
right? The hobbies.
Yeah.
And someone's gonna say, "Hey, do you want to do that thing you like full time?" Like it's one of those things you gotta jump at that,
Yeah.
right?
Of course, yeah.
So that's the American dream, I think,
Of course.
or a version of it.
I'm just thinking there's not a lot of HVAC houses to be
No, so
tended to in Middle Georgia.
I mean, there's HVAC everywhere,
I know.
but yeah, he didn't. I don't think he didn't do really residential either. He was
Oh,
he
okay.
was very niche.
Okay.
He's working like on power plants and stuff.
We had a customer, not as big of a deal, I guess you could say, but a customer who was buying our food and was an elementary school teacher, but was an absolute savage copywriter. And when I joined, I'm like, all right, well, we need some sort of, right. The biggest thing in the pet industry, just like most industries, right, is Google's more so. We've talked about this before. Google's answers questions, right, solves problems, and then Amazon is for your products. But can I feed my dog this if it has this allergy? What is this on my dog's skin? Right, a lot of those are questions that people type in all the time, and we had zero organic SEO presence. Like I mean zero.
Yeah.
And she was like, hey, like, I would love to write some blogs for you guys in exchange for food. We're like, yeah, no, that's a no-brainer. Send you down some turkey and chicken. You write some blogs for us, no problem, right? It's a no-brainer. And then after the first 2 months, 2 of her blogs started to pick up, and they were getting like 8,000, 9,000 visitors a month from the 2 blogs combined.
Wow.
Real quick turnaround, very niche, right? So she found like different keywords that weren't really we could compete in, and she started crushing blogs, 1 a week. Very, very long, like 5,000 word, like very high depth SEO blogs. And then finally I'm like, dude, Adam, she's a savage. Let's fucking.
Yeah, she's moving the needle.
Yeah. So we had a talk with her, and she's like, listen, like, I don't want to teach anymore. I want to have kids. She's very like crunchy, like wants to give birth, like in her backyard, like type person. And she just wants to like be home and like raise her family. So she's always wanted to do something from home. And she's like, I just want to be a 1099. Is that okay? We're like, yeah, that's completely fine for sure. So we hired her 30 hours a week roughly. And she's been crushing. So she produces blogs every month. And then she's also now a part of our marketing team and helps like more so she's like type A project management. So handles all of our like scheduling calendars and then writes all the blogs, checks over email copy and all that stuff. But she was a customer 8 months ago, and now she's, not teaching anymore. So,
yeah, those stories are, man, that's what gets me going.
Yeah.
It's like so friggin' cool.
so cool.
But hold on. As wild as those stories are, I know you guys have had failures at the same story too, where you've trusted and believed in somebody and then
Oh yeah.
and then
Okay, I
made
got
the
a good
big
one.
mistake. Here
I
you
got
go.
a good one. I gotta go on first.
I know you
Yeah,
got
I'm
one
first.
too, John. I know you do.
So this is more so funny and like kind of like holy shit at the same time. We had a kid in our warehouse at Almost Pride, October, November, December, crushing. Pick packer, got distribution orders ready, and we were like, you know what? This is at the time when we need more like cameras in the warehouse. Like we had like 2 cameras, right? And now it's like, all right, we're getting a little bit bigger. Like the food's not fucking cheap. So Nasty Nate, who
Android
you guys
user.
know, Android user, yeah. Shout out to Nasty Nate. He installed cameras all in our warehouse, and we have this area that we film a lot of content in our mezzanine. So like all of our feature Fridays, all of our social clips are filmed up there, and it's also where our graphic designer has a Cricut machine. So she has a Cricut press that we do like T-shirts and shit with, right? Stickers. And they're not like, it's not thousands of dollars of equipment, but it's expensive. And one day this dude just didn't show up to work. Like, where is he? No one knows. And then the next day the graphic designer comes and she goes, hey, where's my Cricut? We're like, I don't know. It's up in the mess. She's like, it's not there. And Nate's like, I put the cameras in. So we're sitting there with, sure as shit, this guy that we, trusted in the back, because like the way the warehouse is sectioned, we have different areas where like 1 or 2 people will pick and pack treats. The other side of the warehouse is the frozen. So like we put him over there near all the fancy shit. No worries in the world. He went up there and unfortunately stole the Cricut machine. So yeah, he had to go, but he developed the trust where like, hey, he can go in this side of the warehouse, work alone. No one has to worry about him. And next thing you know, he's stealing Cricuts. We never got the Cricut back.
What is a Cricut again?
Cricut machine. It's like
I was gonna ask. I have no idea.
all right. So
As far as I'm chirp, 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 he stole a Cricut.
yeah. So this may be a good section for the wives to watch. A Cricut machine is essentially like a printer, vinyl stickers. Like you can make T-shirts. You can print out vinyls for like your phone. I can put the awesome logo on here. It's just essentially just a
I
printer.
know I had one of those. I just didn't know it was called a Cricut machine.
Yeah.
I just called it the vinyl printer.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm not sure if that story relates at all, but the Cricket's gone, and so is he. So
Okay, so a failed attempt was the guy that was before Current. So this during this whole process, right, of this, call it 12 months of building this relationship with Brandon and eventually bringing him on full time, we knew we needed to figure out content. Like we were leading with content, we needed more content. With certainty, our scale was going to come with content. So we're like, okay, let's ping our network. Who do we know? What can we do? Really nice guy that filmed photos and video of my wedding and my business partner's wedding and a couple other weddings that we knew. A couple people we knew went to high school with him. He was photographer and film guy, working for himself. So he's the guy. We're gonna say, hey, this is your full-time BattlBox content. Very strong with photography, learning with video. But hey, this is gonna work-ish. So we went for it. Mistakes made, and to y'all's points earlier, you know, when you hired the sales guys, we didn't have a process. We didn't have like really the right infrastructure in place. So unfortunately, we set them up for failure. Right?
it was like, hey, just like go film content.
Yeah, and then edit it, and then post it. Like we didn't give him, in hindsight, a lot of instruction, and it was 100% our fault. We did this, and it unfortunately it got to the point where, so he lived in Atlanta. I'm at the time the only partner that lives in Atlanta, and then it got decided, given my work history, and I've terminated hundreds of people, unfortunately, before, just given the sales jobs I had, that I had to terminate him.
What about you, Amer? I mean, I love these stories, but now I want to hear about it in the agency world, because agency is different to me, because this is how I look at it. And I'm going to give you the perception that I get, because I've never run an agency before. But my understanding is obviously you need clients to scale people, but a lot of times you need people to get a project going or to assign to a project. And sometimes you need to go hire those people to bring them in. And then eventually sometimes you lose clients at the same time, or their project ends, and then you've got these people. So when you think about scale, you know, being global and having all these people, like, what are some stories you can share that are around like things that did work and maybe things that didn't work inside the agency space?
So for me, when I started, the first question is like, there's really kind of two models, and then you have a hybrid of it. One is you have a bunch of employees. The other one is you have a bunch of contractors. Which direction do you want to go in? So at first, I tried to do contractors. Now,
That's the safer way to go, right?
it's the safe, especially when you're strapped for cash flow. You get quotes, you know what you're going to do, you budget it. It's a simpler and safer way. The problem for me ended up happening is I didn't feel I had control of the process. It was them doing things the way they wanted to do, deliver the project, and I didn't think it was the best way. Even if you tell them like, hey, this is what I expect, they really don't kind of buy into it. And then the second part is the scaling, is if I needed that person to do 4 or 5 more projects and somebody gets to them before I do, now I got to go find another freelancer to do the exact same thing. So to me, that quickly became like, this is not what I want to do, because I want to control the quality and have no one tell me, well, no, this is the way I do it and this is what you did. My biggest thing, and I shared this before, I 100% need to protect our brands. And if I am kind of leaving that out for somebody else to address, I don't like it. So I quickly shifted. It's like, let's go. We're going to start hiring everybody. It's going to be more painful. And it requires, as a operator, as an owner, a lot more sacrifice because anything that you make extra, I got to reinvest. So that has been really the journey, I would even say, for the past 5-6 years. As we took leaps, it was reinvest, reinvest, reinvest. Now I think we have a great foundation, and regardless what happens, I can always fall back on that foundation and know we'll be okay. So to me, we ended up going with hiring people globally, that every single person worked for us and nobody else. Now, the first time I tried to scale is when I hired my first account manager, per se. And when I hired them, we actually had a physical office space. Now we're all remote, and they work next to me, and they were with me for about 5-6 months and had e-com experience, branding experience, on paper, very qualified. But as I started to work with them, there were two problems. One is we didn't have the process in place, so we were figuring out as we were going. The other thing is there was a little bit of a learning curve from a technical side. They knew growth, but they couldn't really talk anything about integrations. They couldn't really talk about anything about migrations. There was a high Shopify learning curve. But I was like, I'm going to invest. And this person to move out of state to work for us. It was a little bit crazy, but we took that leap together. And here's where it backfired. And it backfired really, really hard. We had a bunch of new projects, was all assigned to them. And Shopify had an event in Toronto called Shopify Unite, which for all developers.
Big event.
Huge event. So I told them I'm going to go to Unite, and I'll be there for 3 days, and I'll be back. We kind of created a game plan of just what needs to be covered. And it wasn't even that crazy, that busy, no big launches. I touched down in Toronto. I get to the site for Shopify Unite. I get a call from them. It's like, hello. Just wanted to let you know today's my last day.
Wow.
See you later, Toronto. Right?
Yeah. And I was like, what the hell? So now every plan that I had.
That's unacceptable, though. Like,
It is.
That's
it
insane.
is. But as a big first hire for me, that deflated the hell out of me, especially saying, hey, I'm going from this contractor model to hiring people. And what I did too is like the salary that I gave them, I saved up where I'm like, in case things go wrong, I'm going to write it out with this person. Like that was like in the bank account, in like almost like their own savings. I'm going to pay this person, we're going to scale, and I'm not going to get rid of them because I have to make this work.
Wow.
And when that happened, that was like one of the biggest and the most deflating moments in my career because I was like, can I do this? Do I know how to hire? Did I answer my
I'd want to
questions?
fight them
Yeah. Same.
Yeah.
physically.
I was
Fisticuffs.
I was very, very like angry like that day. And then I kind of just took a step back and I was like, I got this. It's cool. And what the silver lining in it was, there's a bunch of amazing agencies at Shopify that I started talking to. How do you guys do this? And I got my answers the next 3 days. And I went back to the chalkboard and I was like, I'm not going to let this stop me. And we did it again. Second person, honestly, didn't work out again.
So in hindsight, is this bad? You're making bad hires.
I don't know if it's. Looking back, they were wrong hires. I think, given my experience and what I thought I needed, it was a right hire. But what I made a big mistake, and this is when we talk about scaling of people. My big thing is, and I got this from Zappos, so it's nothing for me. I asked. What is that?
I don't know. It's the microphone moving.
Oh,
It's
like
I thought it was like a boing.
Yeah, it sounds like
I'm adding sound effects to this pod now,
seconds to
guys.
complete.
So I guess sometimes Zappos, I like to ask people how happy they are. And if somebody tells me they're 1, 2, 3, 4, without like an explanation, God forbid something terrible happening in their life, I typically don't like to hire them. I like to try to hire people who are optimists. And I think that's a big thing. The other two things, you have to love people because that's what we deal with as people. And you have to love e-commerce. And some people have faked it and, fooled us. But I think majority of the team that I have, they love to work with people, meaning inter-team and also with the brands that we work. And the other thing is it's like they love kind of what they do. They love what we have enabled, and I need people to buy into that. So I typically, when I interview, I don't like to tell a lot about us. I like them to tell about them for me to figure out, like, do they fit the mold? And then I share things about the company. And since we started to do that, I mean, looking back, I have designers, John knows this, they've been with me for 10 years. I have
She's a rock star too.
Yeah. I mean,
shout out Tammy.
yeah.
Tammy?
Yeah. 10 years. Sarah, 9 years. And they went with me through few different companies. So wherever I went, wherever my co-founder Alan, they followed. Wow. We have developers that have been with us for 8, 9, 10 years. We've done a lot right, but there's these specific positions I think sometimes too, and Carrie, who's my director of merchant success, says, we're kind of sometimes trying to hire unicorns, but sometimes that's what we need. Mm-hmm. But unicorns,
yeah, unicorn hunting is difficult.
Tough.
Well,
they don't exist.
I think part of it starts with, especially as founders, some of us, especially in our thought process, is we have a level of excellence that we expect, want, and desire out of people, and understanding that you're only going to get 80% out of them is something that's really hard to accept. And I've personally been a person, not a victim, it's not the right word, but I guess I'm victimized myself in my own head. But the real answer is I've been in a position where I feel like, okay, look, this person is not bad. It's not great. I want great, right?
Yeah.
But great doesn't happen that often.
The thing is, I think it's hard to hire great, not because people are not amazing. Great is molded within your culture and your company. They have to learn, like what you said earlier, like with Tammy was like a blank slate. We hired her fresh out of college, but I hope that she feels as that we supported her, and she became a unicorn for us. She wasn't hired a unicorn. She said, I'm going to become a unicorn.
Yeah, no, this resonates. So I look at my team right now, and I can confidently say they are all great. Like the core team, they are all great, but they were not all great when they started. A lot were good and willing to learn, willing to sponge, willing to possess critical thinking. But it's good to great, right? And we got them there.
Who here was at any point great early in their career?
I think I've always been great.
I was shooting fucking weddings 8 years ago.
You stopped being great when you got an Android.
There we go.
All right. Before we go down that line, I'm going to switch real quick. Tactical. One piece of advice that you can give to the listeners today about when you're thinking about scale that you want them to think about as an operator, as a marketer, whatever they are, as an agency owner, SaaS operator, whatever you are listening to this pod, what's the one thing that you can give advice to every listener about scale? And I'll start first while you guys are thinking, because I see your minds buzzing right now. My number one advice is have patience. It's actually incredibly hard as a founder or even a manager, employer, whatever you have, to have patience for people. What I've learned over time is that people take longer sometimes than you. And what I mean by that is, look, I make decisions. I make 1,000 decisions in a snap of a finger. As you guys have probably seen, I'm a very decisive dude about things. And I'm like, this is it, let's go. That's not how many people in the world operate and think. And so to me, my number one advice I give to the listeners here is have patience when you're trying to scale. It does take time. You've got to fail a little bit in order to scale correctly.
So I love that. And mine is very similar. It's have patience. I agree with you on that. But on the full other side of the pendulum, when things aren't working, don't let them continue for too long. Like I have so many stories of stuff we were scaling new brands where there was something fundamentally broken with it. It was done. It needed to be taken out back. And we allowed it to continue.
But my question to that is it because you thought it was broken, or was it because it was actually broken? And what I mean by that is sometimes, again, we as founders tend to jump in when they haven't figured it out fast enough. And we're trying to help because we're problem solvers. But sometimes that's a bad thing to help a human figure it out themselves.
No, I mean, it's a fair ask. I think it's probably a mixed bag. Sometimes that, but sometimes gave full autonomy to the team and was not going to jump in.
Interesting. What about you, Amer?
I would say my best tool is having siloed conversations. When we deploy something new, I like to have conversations with different departments and department leads and listen to their perception of what's going on. Because what I find, as soon as everyone has a different perception, it means you're not all aligned.
Yeah, it's a problem.
Yeah, that's a problem. So I'd like to do that. And John knows from time to time when we roll something out, I'll reach out to him and a few other merchants like, hey, how is this happening? Or how is
that
it going?
happened last week.
Yeah.
Last week we got from their team, they do our development. We got a cool Friday recap email. And it was very refreshing, was very precise, had everything in place. And then their manager actually reached out and wanted feedback, but then you reached out too, and you were like, hey, what did you think of this?
Yeah. So to me, it was like, I like to know, do the merchants and the brands that we work with see what we're working on? Do they know about the things that we're working on? And same thing for my team. Typically, as soon as my team is fragmented, I know we have a problem and we got to reset. I think a lot of founders make a mistake when they're scaling. They have team meetings about things. And as soon as somebody says something, they kind of change somebody else's perspective on it. And I like to have it siloed. I write everybody's thoughts down. And if they don't match, forget about it. I even did this last year. We did a big activity about what do you want to see of your teammate? Give me 3 characteristics.
Dude, love that.
Yeah.
I love that. It's communication at its finest, basically.
Yeah.
And you're not just doing a one-way communication, it's a two-way communication.
And then I went to anyone that's hiring. These are the 3 characteristics we have to hire for. Because if they don't have this, they're not going to be a right fit. And it's not what I think. This is what our team needs. This is what our team wants.
All right, moving to you, Bryan. What's the tip?
So
tip of the day.
Tip Tuesday. Yeah, it's not going to work because we release this on Thursdays. Yeah, it's not a thing. Yeah,
Tip Thursdays.
Tip Thursdays. Yeah, Tip Thursdays.
Bryan's Tips Thursdays. Yeah. Here we go.
Could mean multitude of things there. So I think when and this is more so relatable to folks out there who are brands that also create their own product. Where I found it very useful. Where I'm also kind of wild, where I'll just fucking do crazy shit every day. But I've done everybody's job in the company. So like I've done procurement.
Be in their shoes.
I've done so it's easier. It's easier said than done to scale behind a computer. But unless you know like the day-to-days and what's going on with their shoes on, you can sort of manipulate things, right? Where like there's so mmany things that I saw behind a computer. I'm like, what the fuck's going on in the warehouse? Why are they doing it like this? And it's like, that's because I had to actually be there and I saw it, right? So there's how you scale will also depend on how you view things that need to be scaled. So if you're able to actually like get a firsthand sight in that, right? Everything from customer service to fulfillment to procurement to marketing to SEO, whatever the case may be, it's a lot easier to make decisions in regards to what to scale, how much to scale of it when you actually know what's going on firsthand.
Now, for Jimmy, for you, and maybe for you as well, how many people do you guys have right now?
Around 40, 45, yeah.
How many do you?
About the same.
I have about double, a little bit over double.
Now, your team, like what he's suggesting, and same thing for me, I can't do everybody's job in my company. Neither can you.
No.
So it's like...
I can do everything but the coding part.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can sell, you can probably market, you can do a lot. Do you do accounting?
I can do accounting. I was the CFO for many years, technically.
Yeah.
AKA I made my own decisions and I spent money how I felt like, right?
How about you?
I mean, if we're going by Jimmy's definition, yeah.
Yeah, we had to do every job, right?
But no, we brought someone on that was much better at it than us.
No, but I'm just saying general. Can you do everybody's job in a company?
At this point, no.
No. Okay. But do you know what it takes?
I know what it takes.
Okay.
I don't possess the needed skills.
Because I struggle with that. I mean, I can't develop anymore. I have developers. So it's like, it's very interesting. But I think best leaders, if they haven't done the job, they should probably learn what it takes to do the job.
Oh, 100%. So I know everything from a surface level.
Yeah.
I can't get into the weeds. Right?
Okay. Yeah. Because I think we sometimes forget that.
Yeah.
And sometimes like even internally in my team, we get like, oh, why is that happening that way? Well, let's see how much they have work on their plate. What are they dealing with? How does the process we have still support that position? And sometimes I think we get away from that, but that's very important. I think we all as leaders, and I think it's harder the bigger you get, we need to know what it takes to do the job.
100%.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. Like, there's some things I can jump in the weeds on, but it's going to take me 3-4 times longer because I'm not fluid with it.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes when we have a problem, I'll still jump into code, but I'm like, F and A. I don't have much hair left.
Right.
Part of the challenge is a scale. I mean, all of
We
these
just
are.
I just got an amazing text.
Yeah.
Ooh, what is it? Are we going to read it
How
out
many
loud?
swipes
Is
he
it
has
a
to
good one?
take.
What do we got?
Can you read that?
It says, dude, I love the podcast. I literally think about all this all the time, like how everyone specialized in one thing. If things just came together and came full circles, really moves the business in a big way.
Is that from Mark Cuban?
We'll go ahead and pretend that.
That was from Mark Cuban.
No, that's a great I mean, we're here at Sub Summit actually here as we're shooting this, and we're at a studio down the street, but it's been interesting to hear as many people who have heard about us. And we have some surprises that happened throughout this thing. Actually, we can talk about it because they won't hear this till afterwards.
Yeah, this will come after.
John over here, who's the hero and superstar of Sub Summit, has gotten us a lot of perks. So we've got a live pod that we're doing coming up. We'll episode and air that on YouTube and all the good stuff. We also got to take over the bathrooms. Yeah. And I know that sounds crazy.
Yeah, cue the B-roll here.
You need some clarification.
Yeah. We'll post a picture up here, but essentially we got the placement of the mirrors in the bathroom, which we know you'll get 100% success rate of viewership because everyone has to go to the bathroom unless you're weird.
So
I have to go to the bathroom now.
But my wife's a nurse. She can hold her bladder. I think it's a nurse thing. She doesn't pee at work.
Oh my God.
At all?
No.
How long are the shifts?
12 hours.
Do you think it's because she like sweats it out while she's
I don't know.
running
I
around
think it's
all
a
day?
nurse thing.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I think either that or something's wrong.
My wife can't hold it for like an hour and a half.
Really?
Yeah, well, she's like always in the bathroom, I feel like.
Oh, yeah.
So
I think it's got to be a
opposite.
nurse thing.
That's great for road
impressive.
trips.
Oh, it's super impressive. Great for road trips, but we have a rule of thumb. If you have to fill up, it's too far, you got to fly. So that's the furthest we go on the road. So if you start with a full tank of gas and you have to stop somewhere to fill up, it's
too far.
Fly.
Interesting.
That's
This
smart.
rule may break as
I
the
like that.
miles get better and better in cars.
Yeah.
Did you have to fill up?
Did I? No.
Okay.
I burned like a quarter of a tank coming up here.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That little car's efficient, man.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go ahead and wrap this thing up. Episode 5, scale. Really enjoyed this conversation, guys. Yeah. Great tips, great stories around things that we're talking about. Obviously, I think this is something we're going to talk about a lot over time because it's not just like a single episode, but it's like as we continue to learn, not as entrepreneurs, founders, business owners, marketers, but not only for that reason, but things that just keep learning and, things that are happening today in the next 6 months into a year will be starting being kind of hindsight, and we'll probably come back and revisit this conversation. All right. Episode 6 is coming up. Episode 6, the next episode, we're going to talk about the summer lull. And what I'm talking about is in the brand side. And I'm feeling it on my side. I bet you're feeling some version of it right now with the macroeconomics that are happening in the world. I think summer lull is a really interesting conversation. And I'm talking about how do you get above it and how are you thinking about it? How are you attacking it and trying to find those different places? With that, guys, as we're wrapping up the top of the hour, this is John, Amer, Bryan. My name is Jimmy. I haven't fucked that up today.
Yep.
I am the moderator here. We thank you for listening. Make sure you like, subscribe, share with your friends. Text John how much you loved it. He loves hearing how much you loved it, so you can share it to all of us. So if you'd like to be, share it to John, share it. If you use an Android, if you use an iPhone, text one of us because it won't look really good if you do. So.
Had to throw one in there.
Wait, one little jab in there, right? Every episode, you got to throw a little jab in there. But thank you guys for listening. Again, like, subscribe. Peace out. We'll see you guys on the next episode.
Thanks.
Welcome to the ASOM Pod, where we talked a lot. Ecom was the path that we walked a lot. But now the question is, will you subscribe or not?